Good day, my friends. We're at chapter 25, verse 2. And there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and his name of his wife was Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. Notes. The name Nabal means fool, and to be sure the man lived up to his namesake. He was of the house of Caleb, but not of the spirit and faith of Caleb. Anyways, verse 4. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men, and David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in thy name. And thus shall you say to him who lives in prosperity, Peace be both to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be unto all that you have. And I have heard that you have shearers. Now your shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. Verse 8. Ask your young men, and they will show you. Wherefore let the young men find favor in your eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray you, whatsoever comes to your hand unto your servants and to your son David. And when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. Notes. Now David had a right to ask a favor, considering that he and his men had been a protector to the great flocks of Nabal by keeping the bandits and the Philistines and whatnot away. Anyways, verse 10. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, Who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays who break away every man from his master. Notes. This was an insult to David, insinuating that David is a mere slave who has run away from his master, who is Saul. Verse 11. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men whom I not know whence they be? So David's young men turned their way, and went again, and came and told him all those things. Verse 13. And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. Notes. In other words, they stayed in a camp. Now, no man is perfect, even though he is a typology of Christ. And David, like the Apostle Paul, stung with the injustice of Nabal's language, he started out to punish him. But the Lord delivered him from the snare, and Abigail, as we shall see, was the instrument of that deliverance. Verse 14. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. Verse 15. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them, when we were in the fields. Verse 16. They were a wall unto us both by night and day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Notes. Now David's men encamped close by Nabal's possessions, and they were a blessing instead of a hindrance. As Nabal did not know or seem to understand or even care for these things, likewise the world in general does not realize or recognize the salt of the earth that is in the midst. Verse 17. Now therefore know and consider what you will do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. Notes. I must remind my listeners that the word Belial means worthless. So coarse and violent was Nabal that it was hopeless to even speak with him. Verse 18. Then Abigail made haste, and took 200 loaves, and 2 bottles of wine, and 5 sheep ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she said unto her servants, Go on before me, before I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Notes. Not only is Abigail beautiful in person, but she seems even more beautiful in her character. Her faith and her intelligence are definitely admirable. She judges both Nabal and Saul as God sees them. She recognizes in David his title as king despite her or his personal imperfection. She also recognizes his valor in fighting God's battles, and where others only see a rebel, she sees a redeemer. Now, all of this is not merely just the intelligence of the head. It is accompanied by the affection of the heart as well. We shall definitely read that. Verse 21. Now David had said, Surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him. And he has requited me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all who pertain to him by the morning light, and who urinates against the wall. Notes. Well, David fully intended to kill Nabal and any who resisted with him. Well, just be straightforward with that. Verse 23. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off her ass, and fell down before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and fell at his feet, and said, Upon me, my lord, upon me let this iniquity be. And let your handmaid, I pray you, speak in your audience, and hear the words of your handmaid. Let not my lord, I pray you, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal. For as his name, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your handmaid, saw not the young men of my lord, whom you did send. Notes. From the text, it seems that Nabal's great wealth may have actually been brought about by the wisdom of this woman. Verse 26. Now therefore, my lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, seeing the Lord has withheld you from coming to shed blood, and from avenging yourself with your own hand, now let your enemies and they who seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal. Notes. In other words, this lady begins her appeal by affirming that it was God who thus made her come to prevent this nonsense that was about to happen. Verse 27. And now this blessing which your handmaid has brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. Notes. Well, obviously the blessing pertained to the food stuff, and what was it, about verse 18 all the way up to 19? Anyways, verse 28. I pray you forgive the trespass of your handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil has not been found in you all your days. Notes. From these statements we learn that Abigail knew all about David, and most definitely her husband Nabal did as well. So his response to the appeal for help was not on the basis of ignorance, but rather based on stupidity. Verse 29. Yet a man is risen to pursue you, and lo, seek your soul. But the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord your God. Note, she's talking about Saul persecuting him, and she's saying that God is actually the one who is determining David's destiny. Scripture. And the souls of your enemies, them shall he sling out, as out of the middle of a sling. Notes. And that's exactly what happened. Verse 30. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord shall have done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and shall have appointed you ruler over Israel. Notes. She knows, as most of Israel did, that David had been anointed by Samuel to be king, and it was going to come to pass. And we must pick up in chapter 25, verse 31 of the book of 1 Samuel. Thank you, and God bless.